Jay Baba. So this morning we're going to be discussing Mehera's life in connection with the Jessawala, Kerawalla, Satha, Damiana families. So here's a picture of literally baby Mehera, little Mehera, learning to walk, being held by Baba and Roshan. She's a little bit older, but this just goes to show the proximity that she had in her life from early on with Baba. Okay, and then her parents. Here's a picture of Roshan, her mother, and Sam, her father. These pictures were taken by Tony Zoyce. And here's a picture of the Jessawala Kerawalla family at Bindra House with Devana there as well. Some of you may know the people in the photo, and then the dogs as well. The next photo is Mehera with Merwan, Devana, and others in Montley Hall. Frank Blois took that photo. And here's a lovely picture of Mehera at Meherazad at tea time. And Merwan would bring a tiffin, like a cookie tin, but it was a tiffin. And inside he would have the treats. He would have cookies and cakes and things like that. And Merwan, after the tea was served, would pass out a piece or a cookie to each person that was there for tea time. And then at the end, he would put the lid on top and then bring it out the next day for the next tea time. And there's Mehera. And here's my last slide. A lovely picture of Mehera. This was taken in 2014, and she was speaking at the LA Sahabas. Jay Baba. Okay. Right. Okay, so I'm back. Thank you, Betty, for your instructions. Okay, back to Mehera and her extended, wonderful family that we were fortunate to know. Mehera was born on February 21st, 1959 in Poona. She passed recently, August 7th, 2021 at Meherazad. Her parents, as I mentioned, were Sam Kerawalla and Roshan Satha. They married on March 23rd, 1958. Her one sibling was her sister Dolly, who was born later in 1962. And Baba wanted both of these children to come to them. She later married Kavas Arjani. They separated, but they had one son. They have one son, Sheriar, who has his own child at this point, and her profession was therapist, psychologist. One day in around 1922 or 1923, people said there was a Parsi saint near Arangown village. Her grandfather and other brothers heard Baba sing. Mehera's grandfather said that Baba's singing voice was so beautiful. When they walked there and met Baba, Baba asked how many brothers were there. When Baba heard there were 6, he said, "I am your 7th brother." The first time Baba visited their home at Akbar Press, the great-grandfather was sitting on the porch reading from his prayer book. He was a devout Zoroastrian who prayed all the time. When he saw Baba, he immediately said, "Zoroaster has come again." Baba would go to Akbar Press, the family home, with his disciples any time of day or night. Food was always prepared for him. If they didn't come that day, the family waited. They ate the food the next day, but they would always have food prepared in the cupboards. In 1917, and this goes back a little bit, Gaimai, who was one of the Satha sisters, Erich's mother, married Papa Jessawala, and they moved to Nagpur. So the Jessawalas and Sathas were connected. When Guy Mike first came with Erich and brought him to Ahmednagar, and they stayed with the family home at Akbar Press, um, that's the first time Erich met Baba. Baba when he began his travels, he went to Nagpur, and his first public gathering was at their Nagpur home. In 1938, they gave up the Nagpur home, and Erich came to be with Baba, and they also moved there. In 1947, Baba told the Jessawalas to move to Bindra House in Poona for 2 weeks. Well, they didn't unpack, and they were there for quite some time. And Papa Jessawala, he liked to visit his friends, but he wanted his things. He wanted his Parsi cap, and he wanted other items so that he would be more comfortable with his Parsi friends. Finally, he went to Baba and said, please tell them to unpack so I can have these things. In 1938, and Baba agreed. So they finally unpacked, and they lived in that house until 1990 when it was finally sold. Mehera's grandmother was quite poor and had been widowed at a young age. She brought her family to live in Bindra House. When Mehera was born in 1959, her grandmother and Roshan were living there, and that's how Mehera began her life at Bindra House. When Baba would go on his travels with the men Mandali, he would always bring them before returning to Meherazad or Meherazad to refresh. He wanted his Mehera, to see him looking relaxed and clean and healthy. Whatever time of day or night they arrived at Bindra House, food was always ready for them. Baba arranged her parents' marriage. Sam and Roshan were direct cousins. In 1957, Sam became a sailor in the Merchant Marines. He sailed on the ships as a radio operator. At that time, he was dating a woman in Greece. Baba called him on one of his shore leaves. Baba wanted to discuss marriage, and he told him to marry Roshan, which Sam did. Now the Sathas and the Kerawallas were connected. Baba asked them repeatedly, when will you have children? Roshan went to see Baba off in 1958 when he went to the West. He told Roshan, when I return, you will be pregnant. And she was, but there was a lot of concern because 3 of Roshan's siblings, her other siblings, had muscular dystrophy. And they were concerned that 2 cousins marrying, this would be passed on to any children they had. Baba assured them, for 7 generations, there will not be any muscular dystrophy amongst the descendants. When Mehera was 20 days old, Baba came to Bindra House and named her Mehera and told the family, she is a special soul of mine. For many years, Baba had ordered Meherwan Jessawala not to touch any women or girls. But when he was at Bindra House, he asked Meherwan the first time to hold her. So she always looked at Meherwan as a father figure because her father was actually away. He'd be away for 3 years at a time on the merchant ships. Baba also fed her sherbet with his finger and played with her. In fact, she said she had to put her toys away at a certain point to keep them and be able to play with them. Baba also told that she was not to be hurt or punished. She was quite bright. When she was 2.5, she was actually able to say some of the prayers, but not all of them. But she did learn to say the prayers perfectly. When Sam returned on shore leave, Baba wanted them to have a second child. In 1962, her sister Dolly was born. Baba named her Daulat after Mehera's mother, but she was always called Dolly. Today, she is one of the trustees of the Avatar Meher Baba Trust. When Mehera was a young stir and the family would visit at Meherazad, she'd be all over the place. And so to find her, they would call Mehera, Mehera to have her come. But Baba's Mehera would hear her name being called, so she would come running. And so what they decided to do is they named Mehera Arjani Baby Mehera. That's how she got the name. So when they called, Mehera didn't have to go running around and they would find Baby Mehera. She was called Baby Mehera until she was 30 years old, at which time Baba's Mehera passed. Life at Mindra House was a wonderful place to grow up because Baba would bring his mandali and she recalls certain mandali that came to visit. Vishnu master, she said, would come to Bindra House and he loved fresh cream. So he would want all the cream and she also loved fresh cream. So she asked to have cream set aside for her when Vishnu would come. She was very fond of Dr. Duncan. He would come and smoke his cigars. So she called him the Cherutwala. And being in Baba's presence, Mehera said that Baba had a very distinct and special and sweet fragrance, different from anyone else. She said in Baba's presence, there was never any need for an interpreter. Roshan said the same thing. When Baba would come to Guru Prasad, they went daily and they would bring lunch. I'd like to take this time to read something that Mehera wrote on sacred ground. And Bob Aarons would encourage people to write these stories and he would publish them if you all remember. And she called hers, Go See My Tomb. And I'll read excerpts from it. It was 1964. Her mother, Roshan's sister, Dolly, and Mehera were staying at Akbar Press, the Satha family home in Ahmednagar for the Diwali vacations. During that particular vacation, she says, I remember going to Meherazad frequently for lunch. We'd leave Akbar Press in a tanga at 9 and stay until after 5. The tanga would stay and then take them home. One day, as they were greeting Baba, he said to her mom, gestured to her mom, tomorrow you all don't come straight here. Go to Meherabad and see my tomb, then come for lunch. I want the children to see my tomb. Dolly was 2 and Mehera was 5. The following morning, they got back into their tanga much earlier than usual. And they finally came to a place that looked like a compound with small houses inside the area. We stopped and were greeted by a tall, stern man who told us that we were expected and to take the tanga and go up the hill right away. This, of course, was Padre, though she didn't know it then. He didn't smile at us or come forward to hug us, as most older people did, but stood there with a cigarette dangling from the side of his mouth and talked to our mom. Off we went via a railway crossing up to what looked like a castle. Waiting for us was a tiny woman dressed in a white sari. She said, Baba sent us a message. You're here to see his tomb. Signing to follow her, she set off. It was beautiful. Painted walls and ceiling, steps leading down to a crypt that also had paintings on every side. Mansari told us to go down the steps and look at the place where beloved Baba's body was going to be placed. We did, and then came out where she was standing on a platform in front of some small cabins. So essentially, she showed them around. They were led to meet a sweet old man, Kaikabad Dastur. She writes, Kaikabad had the most radiant expression I'd ever seen on anyone's face. They were taken to see the rooms of Mehera Retreat. They were shown where the Jessawalas had stayed, where Mansari stayed. They had a total tour. They were taken to the Gadi. They had to pass 3 of the dogs. 2 were nervous, but 2 let them pet them. After they bowed down at the Gadi, they said goodbye and left. Arriving at Meherazad an hour and a half later, they went to see Baba and he gestured. Did you all go? Mom said we had, and Baba made the sign that he was pleased. That was how we first went to see his tomb. And this Mehera Arjani wrote for Avatar Meher Baba Trust on Sacred Ground on October 15th, 2015. So that was in 1964. In 1967, the Kerawallas visited the US, and they also visited and they stayed when they were in the Bay Area at the Dimfels home. So she befriended Joan. Came back, Joan was Baba was very interested and asked Mehera about her conversations with Joni. January 31st, 1969, Meherwan cycled back home to Bindra House. He told Mehera and Dolly to go outside while he told the others that Baba had dropped his body, which was quite a shock. They went with Minu Barucha in his car. There was a full moon. The car had no headlights, so Mrs. Barucha shined a torch or a flashlight out the window until they got to the samadhi. Mehera said she could feel Baba so strongly in the samadhi. The 7 days felt like he was everywhere. In the crypt, she said you couldn't escape his presence as God. It was so strong. When Baba dropped the body, there was no food at Meherabad, if some of you remember those stories. The food, when it finally arrived, came and was cooked from Akbar Press and was cooked there. As time went by, she, in 1983 to 1984, she worked for an adoption agency. At that time, she wanted to adopt one of the baby boys and was trying to convince her parents. Erich said not to because he felt if she left, the parents were older and then they would have the child. And as it turned out, the boy was adopted by a very nice family. So it encouraged her to get married because she wanted to have her own son. And Adi and Rhoda Dubash thought that Kavas Arjani, also from Pakistan, was the right one. They did marry, and they have one son, Sheriar, who now has his own son. They later separated and divorced, and she wanted to return and live at Meherazad. In August of 1997, Mehera was living on her own, and Erich asked her to move to Meherazad. He said, bring everything. Erich called her and Dolly his nieces. They were actually second or third cousins. But since then, she thought of Erich and Meherwan as her uncles. Meherwan said, take whatever work is given to you without questioning why. She ended up editing Meherwan's memoirs in the book we enjoy reading. She helped Falu greatly, cared for her parents, and when they had road and fence issues with the villagers that wanted to build a road going through Meherazad, she was incredibly helpful because she was the one that spoke Marathi. And she was the one that could talk with the villagers more easily. About Meherwan, she said, he had severe scoliosis and was in constant pain. He was most self-effacing. When asked, what does a saint look like? Baba pointed to Meherwan. When Erich was ill, she was there. She and Devana prepared his food during that time. And when Erich passed, she was the one massaging his feet. In 2014, Mehera visited the US with her very close friend Vijaya. They had met when they both worked at the adoption agency. In 2014, Mehera was the guest at the LA Sahavas. Her talks there are available to listen to on the LA archival site and on the Mehera Arjani Meher Travels page that Anthony Zoyce created. She returned to the US the following year in 2015 to speak at the conference held by Meher Legacy and the Meher Baba Center of Northern California. A copy of Mehera's talk there is also on those sites. And Elisa will talk about that in a little bit. In November 2015, we received the news that Mehera suffered a severe stroke. And I'd like to read briefly a small excerpt from a letter that Shelley sent. Excuse me. And this is from Shelley at Meherazad. Last week, Mehera's mom, Roshan, came to visit her for the first time. There was a very touching and profound moment when she and her mother sang a beautiful bhajan together. Mehera still sings the arti to Merwan on the phone every day, and the women at Meherazad, Casey, Shelley, and Devana would call the hospital room and at arti time, and Mehera would sing along with the artis, which was quite touching. She suffered a second stroke and passed to Baba, as we mentioned most recently. And I'd like to end with reading some excerpts from what was written by Mary and Richard Turner, reflecting on Mehera. We have heard word today from Meherabad that Mehera, sister of Dolly Kerawalla and daughter of Roshan and Sam Kerawalla, passed away around 4:25 this morning, 7th August, 2021. By Baba's grace, Dolly was unexpectedly staying with Mehera, so was first at her side. And then they go on to say, it was a privilege to know her because her great love for Baba always shone so brightly, and it was indeed self-communicative, as Meher Baba describes true love. Through that experience, we were brought even closer to beloved Baba, and we are so grateful to him for this contact with one of his dear ones. Mehera was a loving, supportive friend whose strength in beloved Baba was an inspiration to those who knew her. We will always remember her with love and gratitude for a very dear friendship. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Jai Baba.
At this time, we will see a short movie that Elisa Genevieve created, a tribute to Mehera, talking about her times with her. So let's see. I need to remove the spotlight. Sorry. Oh. Okay.
Hi all. I'm sorry that I can't be there today in person, but I just wanted to be sure that I contributed to this remembrance of dear Mehera.
I'm sorry, am I getting
so many wonderful times with her. I met Mehera in the early 1990s when both of our kids were young.
Somehow I've got the wrong subject here. Excuse me, hold on. All right. Share screen. Here we go. All right.
Hi all. I'm sorry that I can't be there today in person, but I just wanted to be sure that I contributed to this remembrance of dear Mehera because I had so many wonderful times with her. I met Mehera in the early 1990s when both of our kids were young. She and I were of a similar age, and we were both professionals in the psychotherapy world. So we shared a lot in common in that way. Many times we spent together over the years of going to India, which were such wonderful times with the children. But some of my favorite memories were when I would go to the trust office and work with Devana and Erich, and Mehera would come, and we would have such fun with Erich in the trust office. And while he was taking his nap, we would us girls would order lunch from the Ashoka next door, and we'd eat outside on the veranda. And so many wonderful memories there. And the thing about Mehera was I always admired her passion, her intelligence, and her fierce, fierce devotion to Baba. And I always had this sense that kind of passion and devotion, that Baba would use her in some way in his work in the future, particularly in the post-Mandali era. And she was a stronger personality than me, and I always admired her. I always kind of admired the way she could so clearly speak what she felt and not mince words. And she had such an ability to communicate so articulately. I was just always in awe of her in that way. But the time that I got to know Mehera the best was actually in the year when I got involved in working on a conference that we put on in Berkeley. The Berkeley Baba Group hosted a conference dealing with the long-buried issue of the difference between the Sufi and the Baba community. And Mehera was very much keen on this issue and felt it was really important that these differences be defined and clearly stated. And she was a huge support to me. We spent times, FaceTiming during that time when I was working on the conference, and she helped me and gave me some guidance and talked to Merwan, and she was such a huge support. I really think Baba linked us together because he pushed me into doing this, and I was somehow in the middle of it, but Mehera was sort of a prop for me in the back. She really helped me and guided me along, and that was such an enormous gift. And then I was like totally blown away when one time she just felt like she needed to come, and it was really, she felt a very strong call to come and present on Baba's last warning. And she worked in great detail with Merwan at the time about that, and traveled all the way from India to the US for a week. And the talk she gave on Baba's last warning was a very impactful aspect of that conference, and it's up still on the Mehera Legacy website for all the future to see, and I think it will remain an important talk in going forward. But in any case, what I want to share about that time was she came and stayed with me for 4 days during that conference. And like I said, I could not have done it without her. By the time she arrived, I was already very shaky and very scared. And she just, as soon as she arrived, I felt like Baba just propped me right up. And she just, we went over it and we practiced, and those 4 days were such an intimate time with her because we would just cook and talk and work on the conference, and then we'd sometimes just watch a movie or just relax or go for a walk. But one evening, and this is what I feel I wanted to share today, is one evening we were watching this movie that she loved. It's a movie called Still Alice, starring Julianne Moore. And the movie was about a woman who was a very bright, intelligent woman who began to make the descent into Alzheimer's and lost a lot of the facilities of her mind. And it was very, very moving movie to Mehera. She told me she watched it many times, and she was excited to share it with me. I hadn't seen it, so we watched it one night. And I was, although very engrossed in the movie, by the end, she was like, well, what did you think? And I said, well, I liked it, but it seemed like it was moving a little bit fast. Like I felt like I was struggling to keep up with the dialogue and whatnot. So she checked the computer and found that it was in PAL. It was set to PAL, P-A-L. And so the speed was not compatible with the US. So she was like, oh my goodness, it's set to PAL. She adjusted it and she said, why don't we watch it again? And I was like, oh, Mehera, don't, that's okay. I know you've already seen it many times. And, I think I got the gist of it and I really loved it. And so we just started talking about it. I said, what is it about the movie that you love so much? And she said that, and I remember she just told me that she felt, she just really felt that something was going to happen to her brain, and that she was very, she was feeling very scared about it. And she just, and I said, well, you know, why do you think that? What makes you think that? And the only thing she could tangibly say was that there was just a lot of neurological issues in her family. And I, you know, I just said, oh, you know, I just sort of assumed it was just a fear, you know, for her, but I didn't really take it seriously. And then, but there was something about how she said it that shook me, because it felt very much like a conviction. And Mehera spoke, you know, when she spoke from a conviction, there was something about that that was almost a little hard to dismiss. But according to, you know, what Dolly says is that she's been saying things like that pretty much her whole life. So she obviously came in knowing she had an inkling. Baba gave her an inkling of her destiny. So fast forward to November of that same year, and I was in India at the time, and Mehera and I had talked about interviewing Meherwan regarding Baba, the power of Baba's name and Baba's last warning. And we worked on, during that trip, devising some questions that we were going to ask him. And the day before her first stroke, I had stayed back at Meherazad, and she and I worked some on preparing, you know, we had gotten it all set up and we were about to do it. I believe it was the next day. But unfortunately, that was the day it didn't happen, because the next morning is when she had her stroke. And I found out at RT that day. And the first thing that came to my mind was what she had told me. And I felt that at that point, by the time she told me, I think it was a very strong intuition for her. And so somehow I felt Baba gave her that knowing, and hearing that she had been saying it her whole life makes it even more strong for me, that Baba gave her that knowing, and that somehow what Mehera had to go through, especially in that last year, was part of his work through her, and what he did for her and for his work through her is something that we will never understand. But somehow I felt, as painful as it was to see her going through that was Baba's work. That was what we had felt somehow. That would, you know, didn't look anything like what we thought, but I just knew that maybe from our perspective, it looked so much more dire for her than maybe what her internal experience was. I mean, we will never know, but that gave me some comfort, I guess, to say that I just knew that Baba was so directly with her and working through her. So I just wanted to share that, because I'd never told anybody that, and hearing from Dolly that she had been saying that her whole life, it just made it even more so. But that's what I want to share. And it was just, I felt such a great honor to have known Mehera. And I just know wherever she is, she's going to still be doing some very powerful work for him, and maybe for all of us. Jai Meher Baba.
Let's see. Well, now at this point we'd like to open it up to any of you who had memories of Mehera, and the way we usually handle this is to ask people to raise their hands digitally, and I will put. I'm going to look at the gallery. So if you're uncomfortable doing that, just just raise your hand and I'll find you. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. One more thing before we go into sharing. Jim Meyer had offered to sing a song that he thought was meaningful to Mehera. So Are you ready, Jim? Can we do that now?
Sure. I knew Mara since she was about 13 years old, 12 years old. And I just personally feel that what she went through was to release her. And this is the poem that Hafez wrote, right? This is the poem that Hafez wrote right after his realization. The days of distance and the nights apart, all the long, lonely winters of the heart are at an end, are at an end. No more forever shall the autumn gloom, no more forever December's frozen tomb, for swift-footed April fills the world with fragrance and bloom. Oh, my own loving friend, our grief is at an end. Our grief is ended and our joy's begun. We've climbed the night, at last we've reached the sun, and the whole world is bright with the effulgent face of our delight. Oh, my beloved, dearest friend, our grief is at an end. Deep in the scented shadow of your hair, I'm so happy I can scarce believe I'm really there. I bow my head and weep for very bliss, too happy even to kiss. For love, oh most desired and lovely friend, the solitary night is at an end. What do I care that for love of your fair face I throw to the wide winds my work and place? For my work is just to love you, and where to go and where you are is the only place I know. Oh, beloved, most cherished friend, our grief is at an end. Ah, to the wine shop swiftly let us come, with guitars and voices and loud exultant drum, and with a mighty voice to the sake call, deep cups and many, many cups of wine for all. What matter how much money that we spend for almost lovely and beloved friend? Today the grief of Hafiz, that long grief in a wild blessedness beyond belief, is at an end.
Wow.
I will tell one story. When Kerawalla was, I think, about 13, I think Dolly was about 10 or 11. We would hang out. In fact, I stayed at their house for 3 or 4 days in Poona. And Mehera was very strong-headed, strong-willed, which I loved. And we got to joking, and I said, you talk all the time. I bet you couldn't stay silent for 3 days. I bet you a meal at the Chinese restaurant. I'll take your whole family if you can stay silent for 3 days. The name of the place was Cam Ling's, which was right around the block from where they lived in Poona. It was fantastic, actually, Chinese restaurant. Anyway, so she said, "Oh, I could be silent for 3 days." So I said, "Okay." We made a deal, and Erich was very, very interested in hearing all about this and how the outcome was. So for the first few days, I think she was actually secretly talking to Dolly when I wasn't around, but I didn't force her hand in any way. But on the third day, as we were crossing the street, my plan was to grab her and pretend like a car was coming, and she would scream, and that way she would break her silence. So she did, but I said, "Look out!" She said, "What?" I said, "Oh, you broke your silence, She said, "Oh, that's not fair. That's not fair." No. I said, "Okay, all right. The bet is over. Let's go eat some Chinese food." So anyway, that's the one story I'll tell you. J. Bob.
Anyone else have a memory of times with Mehera? All right, we got some hands. Viola.
Jay Baba, I'm so happy to see you, and I'm so grateful for the introductory movie and Karen your share and hearing from Elisa and Jim the music and memory. If I'm not mistaken, I think Mehera came with her mom and Dolly to the States also in 76 or 7, because I remember meeting her when she was staying with Steve and Daphne, she and her mom and sister in Somerville. And I think I remember pigtails. Anyway, what I do remember is her outspokenness. And she said, she's just a kid, and I wasn't much older. And she said, "Oh, America's so uncivilized." And I was so shocked, because I was always, taught, like, well, if you're in someone's home, you want to sort of be polite and not mention anything. And I thought to myself, well, we are in Somerville. It is a bit, raw here. Yeah, I can see that. And then fast forward some years, while she was helping in Meherazad, I would come and go and help there. And again, she'd be very outspoken sometimes about America. And I would remember taking a little umbrage, like, oh. And she also had a beautiful way of speaking about Manu, and how Manu stayed there but didn't join the women for the prayers. And I know Mehera felt for her.
being separate that way. And I remember that. And then I was there when Mehera had her stroke, and I went to the hospital to help her. There were other exchanges where I experienced her incredible warmth and friendship, and just there was a way in which she and her family could make anyone feel as we're just part of the crowd, part of the team, pals. I remember that. But when she was in the hospital, what I got to see was that part of Mehera revealed that I loved most. And it was this incredible love and graciousness that came out when the mind was put aside. But her mind wasn't gone. She worked very hard to reclaim language, and she could say most of the prayers when Meherazad would fall, and we would say prayers in the morning and the evening together. And what I witnessed was congenital felicity. So Meherazad would ask after her night and after her day each time with such interest and care, and Mehera would struggle to give information, and then Meherazad would encourage her to keep working, and she'd work very hard. And more than that, Meherazad would encourage her to keep remembering Baba, keep repeating Baba's name. And then, as their family did, I felt very included. We would say the prayers together, but after speaking with Mehera, Meherazad would then ask me about my night, how I slept. I slept on a little couch in there in the room, and asked after my day and the intimacy and the beauty, and that beauty of Mehera afterwards, when she would reach out to with such loving, I don't know the word for it, but loving happiness to see me, but everyone. And she retained her mind in so many ways. She had that, ability to catch the little crook and yeah, express herself still, even if the language wasn't fully there, even if the body couldn't fully function. And the last thing I wanted to share is not my story, but how a friend of mine who sings would sing at the RTs every morning. And one day, this is before the stroke, Mehera had gone to her and said, "Oh, you must learn Ishbiyaki," and took my friend aside and taught her Ishbiyaki. And yeah, that's my memory of Mehera, and I'm happy she's free, and I'm sorry we miss her. And thanks everybody for all the shares.
Thank you, Viola. That was precious. You were there recently. Thank you. Special. Alan, got a hand
I had two hands up.
up.
I was waving to you, Betty.
All right.
Yeah. In 2005, Roshan stayed with us, with Karen and me, for 3 weeks. And I don't think it was possible to have more fun. Every night was better than the next. It was a party every night. I don't want to get into a long story about it, but just say that if you bottled that fun up, it could have fun for the whole world. Well, in 2014, as somebody has said, maybe my wife, Mehera came with Vijaya to Northern California, and we were their hosts. They stayed with us for a few days. And I took them, Karen and Rainey, on a tour, the Baba tour that in San Francisco, where Baba was, like Coit Tower and the Crooked Street. And then we had lunch at the Cliff House out at the ocean, which seems to be closed right now. Hopefully it'll be resurrected. And that's been around over 100 years. And they had a great time. And in the scheme of things, of course, Mehera would give talks. In the scheme of things, we were having so much fun. I said, you know, when your parents and your Uncle Merwan passed, you could come live here. And I was kind of teasing her, but I think she took it a little seriously, because she got up at one of her talks in our house and said, Alan has said when I could live here when my parents and Uncle Merwan passed. And I thought, wow, this could be a pretty big matzo ball that's about to happen. I don't know how serious you are. Well, anyway, that didn't happen, of course. But in 2015, she did have that talk at the Northern California group that was mentioned earlier. And Karen and I were in Myrtle Beach, and she was sweet enough to call us during her stay, which was actually the last time we would talk to her before she had the stroke. And then she, of course, had the stroke in November, as discussed. Karen was one of the folks when we came in November 2015 to go to Poona to help take care of her a little bit. So when we would come to India, and we came every December since 2007 until the last 2 years because of COVID, we would always see Mehera when we got there and when we left, and sometimes in between, even though she was in her braces and she had her helper, and she was able to communicate, and it was always sweet to give her a hug and kiss and tell her how much I loved her and how much she loved me. It was reciprocal and all that. But I want to share the last time I had a chance to visit with her. On December 23rd, 2019 was the celebration on the Memorial Tower at Lower Meherazad. And Karen and I were leaving that afternoon, but fortunately, and that's another long story, they had it in the morning. I don't think it was for us. And although it could have been, but there was a couple hundred people there. If any of you were there, you know what I'm talking about. And then afterwards, they had a big lunch. And we were going to eat lunch at the NPR, so we didn't have any of that lunch. But, you know, people were wandering around talking to each other. And there was Mehera sitting on a bench right where near the food was with her assistant. And we were leaving right then. We had to go on the bus. So it was to be the last time I would see her that trip or ever. And so I came upon her, and somehow she got up and we hugged and kissed. And then we started joking, and I told her how much I loved her. And then she told me how much she loved me. And then we went into ratcheting up the love. I said, well, I love you 10 times more. She said, I will love you 100. And finally she got to like a gazillion or some number like that, which is beyond imagination and conception. But it's a lot of zeros. So I had tried to match her gazillion by gazillion, but when she hit me with the big one, I conceded. I said, I can't outdo that. I can only match that. And we just laughed and hugged, and I rubbed her hair and just kissed her, and she kissed me, and so beautiful. What a great soul. And we really, Karen and I really loved her so much. And now during the COVID time, I would always ask my friend Ram Nori, who would go to Meherazad from time to time, what he knew about Mehera. And of course, he only knew what we knew, was that she was in this coma. And then she passed a few weeks ago. But her reward, as others have said, as Jim has said, must be very great, because her love for Baba was very great, an inspiration. And she's always in our hearts. So that's why she lives in our house. Jai Mehera Baba.
I have some more photos that came in late, so maybe I'll just show them at this time. Bear with me here. Oh. Oh, here we go. It's kind of small on your, but you know, heck. So there's that photo. You know, and I think you can see it better if I just, this is the CD, this is the disc, and this is, it's not great. But anyway, they're two lovely photos of the Jessawala Kerawalas, and Mehera is standing. Wow, why can't I see her? Oh, there she's in the pink down below with Manu. So anyway, Brainy sent some other photos, and I'll play. I'll play it. Roshan, she sings. It's a Zoroastrian arti, Korsha Nayesh, which is, oh my goodness, it's to say the least, it's very powerful. I don't know that you get the full impact, but wow, to hear that woman sing it was life-changing. Let's see. Can you hear it?
Dadar Ahuramasta Rayaman Kareman Harvis Payaga Gerdegar Khudavande Khudavandan Padshah Barhame Padshah Nekehedar Khale ke makhlud Al razak roji dehande Kader o kavi o karim Bakshayande Baksha Yazgar Meherban Tavanam Odanam Odadar O Pak Parvardikar Adel Padishahi Bizwal Basha Ahuremasta Khuda Avtar Meher Baba Ki Jai. The song which I sang just now was sung by Lord Zoroaster when he was avatar in Iran. This is from the Zoroastrian prayer book in the name of Khade Avasta. And the name of this knowing are the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings, the Creator of all creation, the Preserver and the Sustainer. O Omnipotent, O the Ancient One and Eternal, Thou who art the giver of all boons, and thou who art all mercy and all wisdom, and the source of all purity. O the Lord of creation, Ahura Mazda, I invoke thy name and ask for thy blessings. Let thy will be done and thy justice be administered, O God Ahura Mazda. Jai Baba. When beloved Baba used to come to Bindra house, at that time we did not have any radios or any entertainment in the house. The only entertainment was given by the family by singing to Baba. And this is one song which beloved Baba liked it very much. So
Now, she's introducing the next song on this CD. Maybe I'll stop at this point, and I so recommend. Rainey did this. Rainey produced this CD with these Roshan singing so beautifully. It's called Songs Meher Baba Enjoyed. You can get it at Sheriar Press. And if there's time, and if you'd like, I can play the whole thing. But there are some people now who have asked to share. Cindy Lowe, number one. So there you are.
Well, hi.
Hi.
I haven't prepared anything, but just speaking of songs, it so happened that one day a few of us at Meherazad were sitting around, and I don't remember how it happened. Possibly Clea or Dana was there too, but all of a sudden, Mehera and Dolly started singing a Japanese song. It was a total surprise to everyone because nobody knew that they knew a Japanese song, and they were perfect. It was just really so fun. Mehera was one of the most fun people I've ever met in my whole life. And she was also one of the most intelligent. The woman was brilliant. And I met her when I was 10, when she was 10 and I was 24 at the Darshan in 1969. And we did not keep in touch after that, although we had been close at the Darshan. And then I never saw a great deal of her again until I ended up staying at Meherazad where she was living. I stayed there a few times in Meru's time and then later. And we would go for walks and do things together. And she was such good company. She was just such good company. And it was fun being there with her. It was always fun being with her. However, some of the villagers had a different idea. They were terrified of her because she was also a lion. She was a lion or a tiger or something like that. And I remembered this morning. You know, there was a time when whoever was living at Meherazad would run out and confront the villagers who were trying to make a road through Meherazad and all this and that, which happened a few years ago. And at one point, I don't think I was there for this one, but I had been there for a couple of them, and they were fairly scary because there's all these guys and they want a fight. And anyway, one of these, which I wasn't at, Mehera picked up a two-headed snake. And such things do exist, and apparently they can have more than that. I'm not sure if they're really snakes or if they're something else, but they look like snakes. And Indians really do not like creepy crawly things. And one guy I know who's a big hefty guy, he's terrified of things like frogs. And Jeff once brought a green chameleon to Mehera, and she was like, get it out of here. Anyway, so Mehera just picked up this thing and hurled it and it just flew through the air. And so henceforth, the villagers referred to her as Danger Woman. And it was just kind of perfect for her. So that's enough for me. Jai Baba.
Great story, Cindy. Thank you. Let's see. Nan has some share and a song.
Hi, I lived at Mara's parents' house about 6 months a year for many years. And so we got to be, I hadn't had a sister, but we got to be kind of hang out sisters and do sisterly things and laugh a lot. And I had also been a counselor. I can't actually remember if we talked about psychology, but we talked about everything, and we listened to music together, and we danced, and we did very girl kind of things. And I can't remember if we oiled each other's hair, but we just did like beauty kind of thing, just things I had never had anyone to do that kind of stuff with. Anyway, so, and we laughed a lot, like everyone talks about. She was so much fun that way. So just, I wanted to be here to appreciate her. And like, I was trying to think of a song that would fit, because I don't remember which song she liked, but anyways, this one seems to fit. So I just, I'm standing in the autumn twilight, the wind's turning bitter cold. Loving you is my lifeline, I'm trying not to lose my hold. In terms of my salvation, I can't say that I understand. I'm not looking for explanations, no. But don't let go, don't let go, no, don't let go of my hand. I remember the blush of our young love. I thought the kingdom of heaven was mine. You tried to teach me how to be human. All I wanted was to drink your wine. Full of youthful ambition, I threw in with you the great God man. I seem to have lost my direction. No, don't let go, don't let go, don't let go of my hand. Up ahead in the distance looks like mighty rough terrain. I don't know if this old heart of mine can ever stand the strain. Through this lonesome valley, I feel a stranger in a strange land. I don't ask you to spare me, Lord, just don't let go. Don't let go, no, don't let go of my hand. A young woman's full of desires, an old one speaks of destiny. I could sing for 1,000 years, never tell how much you mean to me. Wherever your light shines, I'm with you till the journey's end. I'll follow, Lord, where you lead, but don't let go. Don't let go, no, don't let go of my hand. Please don't let go. Don't let go, no, don't let go of my hand.
Beautiful.
I wanted to say Jeff and I went and visited with Mehera a couple years back. We were there in 2015 when she had the stroke, but it was probably 3 years back or something when Sam was still alive, and we've seen her once since then. We sang, and she would join in, randomly. Just, it was neat. She would join in. She might be quiet for a long time, and then we might talk about somebody in the community. So it was anyways, but it was a very special thing to go and sing with her. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Nan. That was just beautiful. Great share. Thank you. I'm not seeing any hands. Let's see. Oh, Kathy Riley. All right, Kathy, please. Can you unmute, Kathy? Great. All right. Do we have you? Yes. I'm not hearing you. Why am I not hearing you? Oh, does it help to do this? No. Oh, how frustrating. Because your mic is, all right. Well, the only thing I know to do at this point is for you to, oh, was that something?
Did that work?
Yes, it did. Great.
Okay. So thanks everybody for such fabulous sharing, and I feel like we're all on this love journey together. So many memories, so many thankful times staying at View a House on Satchapir Street, and somehow Annie, my friend Annie Weldbell, and I just ended up staying there every time we came and went, you know, from the U.S. And Mehera and Dolly were teenagers, and the, you know, shopping with them, and Mehera helping us bargain down the shopkeepers, and in her voracious, I don't know, she was really a good fighter, and that was fun to watch. And one morning we heard a scratching at the door, one of my fondest memories with Mehera at her house. And I said, "What is that, Mehera?" And she said, "Oh, you'll see." And then she opened up the wooden door, and there was a huge cow, bullock, I don't know, some huge animal at the door. And it had every morning gotten, knowing that they were soft-hearted about animals, it would scratch its horn on their front door. They'd open the door, give it a biscuit, and then it would try to come in, and they would push it back out and close the door. And that was one of the exciting times with Mehera and Dolly at Satchapir Street. I think one of the stories that is really one of my favorites that Mehera told me was once she had moved to England and was a therapist there. She must have involved herself in some sort of charity work and done some wonderful work for free. And then somehow there was a list created for some award ceremony. And she told me she had been short listed, meaning, I guess that's the term for that, she had been picked to go to this thank you ceremony with the uppity-uppities. And she said she got her best sari on, she put a big Baba button on, and she went to this ceremony for thanking charitable folks for helping the British Isles be a better place. And who came up to her but Prince Charles? He saw she said he saw Baba's big photo on her button, and he started talking to her all about Meher Baba, and that yes, he had read Baba's words, and he was very, you know, interested and liked what Baba had said. And she had a long conversation with Prince Charles about Meher Baba, so that somehow came up in my mind right now. And I'd love to sing a song that she loved and that Dunn, you know, her mom's sister, used to love. And of course, people know the story that Dunn walked with the king as a young woman who was still struggling to walk before she couldn't. And of course, we saw in that lovely photo of Baba with little Mehera, baby Mehera, and Roshan, she was walking with the king too. I wander, my spirit oppressed, but now I am happy, securely I rest, from morning to evening, glad carols I sing, and this is the reason I walk with the King. I walk with the King, Meher Baba. I walk with the King, praise his name. No longer I roam, my soul faces home. I walk and I talk with the King. For years in the fetters of sin I was bound. The world could not help me, no comfort I found. But now, like the birds and the sunbeams of spring, I'm free and rejoicing. I walk with the King. I walk with the King, Meher Baba. I walk with the King, praise his name. No longer I roam, my soul faces home. I walk and I talk with the King. Oh, soul near despair, lowlands of strife, look up and let Baba come into your life. The joy of his love to you he would bring. Come into the sunlight and walk with the King. I walk with the King, Meher Baba. I walk with the King, praise his name. No longer I roam, my soul faces home. I walk and I talk with the King. I walk and I talk with the King. Jay.
Beautiful. Appropriate. Thank you so much, Kathy. I'm going to quickly share at this point a photo of Dunn and the ladies. This belongs to Karen Talbot, Karen and Alan. And they said that when Mehera visited them, she saw it and asked them, please, if they would make a copy and send it to her. So there's Dunn, beautiful Dunn. And the center. And we do have another share. Fred?
Yes, to share with the personality of Mehera Arjani. She would love this song. It's the Manonash Calypso, written by Henry Midland, Sufism reoriented. Now mind he always want to crow, work so fast while the heart works slow. Baba says that mind must go, so we sing Manonash Calypso. And the tune go, mind, mind, stupid mind, why don't you go away and leave me behind? Mind, mind, why don't you let me be so I can find reality? Now mind just loves duality, tells me God is illusory. Mind, you are my enemy, you just want me to want me. Mind, who do you think you are? You make what's near seem oh so far. Wait till I get you to Ahmednagar. We'll fix you with the avatar. Mind, mind, stupid mind, why don't you go away and leave me behind? Mind, mind, why don't you let me be so I can find reality? Now, mind, you're such a pesky creature. Sometimes you're just too hard to feature. First you're a beggar and then a preacher. And now you even want to be a spiritual teacher. Oh, my mind, I've known you oh so long. Send you back where you belong. Everything you do comes out wrong. So let us sing the chorus of this song. Mind, mind, stupid mind, why don't you go away and leave me behind? Mind, mind, why don't you let me be so I can find reality? Now, mind, you think you're so cool. You think you really make the rules. Mind, oh no, he's just a tool. Oh, my mind, you're such a fool. Mind, mind, stupid mind, why don't you go away and leave me behind? Mind, mind, why don't you let me be so I can find reality? Now, mind, he, now mind, let's see. Oh yeah, now have you ever heard of Haya? That's the Sufi term for modesty. Oh no, you're just too full of Maya, burning like a forest fire all day long with desire. Mind, you think you're in the driver's seat, think you're something that can't be beat. Remind me of a parakeet, all day long go tweet, tweet, tweet. Mind, mind, stupid mind, why don't you go away and leave me behind? Mind, mind, why don't you let me be so I can find reality? Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Perfect. Yeah. You know, I'm sure she loved this. Did she hear you sing it ever, Fred? Do you know?
Yes, I believe she did hear it when she was here in the LA Sahabas in 2014.
Right. Oh yeah. Ah, thank you. Viola, you're next.
I just had three that I quickly wanted to share when the villagers were brought up, because besides speaking Marathi, and although a lioness, she also had, as you could see from the photos, that bubbling joy and the feeling for the people and wanting to make good relations with the neighbors. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was she who suggested that the ladies at Meherazad would go and teach conversational English to the high school children at the Pimple Gown High School. And also, I wanted to share my memory of her love for her country, because when staying with her, we would work, and then in the hospital, we would rest. And during the rest, sometimes the TV went on, and it was the National Independence Day. And we watched the entire program, and her love for her country. I've never wept watching an Independence Day program. And I watched her weep out of her love for her country. It was pretty remarkable to see. And then the memory of Dunn, I remember her well. Thank you for bringing her up and showing her beautiful picture. Yes, thank you too for the songs. I love hearing them all.
Cindy had two.
Am I here?
Yeah. Oh
Okay.
boy.
Um,
You.
Viola mentioned the hospital, and that's what I wanted to talk about too. Several residents would take turns going to the hospital to be with her. And when you do that in India, you get your own bed and all that. And so I really felt it was a privilege to care for her. Now, I'm not a natural caregiver, but somehow it made it possible for me to do. But the sort of high point of all that time I spent with her there was on Silence Day. And of course, we were silent, and we both were. So I was writing notes and stuff to the nurses or whatever. But at some point, Dolly came with the Kerawalla family Baba sandals. And that was just fantastic. It's like we just all could sit around the sandals and just be there. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention was that later, this was after she was back in Meherazad, I asked her, do you ever get angry with Baba? And she said, she laughed and laughed and laughed. And then she said, yes, all the time. But she also said, but I feel Baba all the time. And I realized when she said that yes, she did feel Baba all the time in a way that I do not. I'm not sure how any of us do, but she was very special to Baba. That much was just completely clear. Jai Baba.
Baba Cindy. Thank you. We got a late photo sent that I'm gonna, let's see, share with y'all. Let's see how this looks. Oops, no, sorry, didn't work. Let me try again here. Actually, okay. Okay, no, there we go. That'll be better. Karen, do you remember who it was? Richard? Someone sent it. Share screen. There we go. There's Mehera at Mondley Hall with the folks. Yeah. So many stories have done. I connected with her over sign language. She had trouble, talking, and I sang this little don't worry, be happy, a silly little ditty that she loved, and every day she'd have me stand there and sign it to her. We got to be buddies. She was remarkable. Done. She corresponded with Baba every day. Special lifetime for that woman. Yeah. Anybody else looking to share that I might have missed? I think then what I'll do is I'll play Roshan's CD.
Karen's hand went up.
Oh, okay. Where are you, Karen? Karen? I just muted you. Sorry. Unmute. Okay.
Hey, Baba. I just want to very quickly mention something else about Dunn. I was at Mondley Hall at Meherazad one day when Dunn was brought into Mondley Hall, and Mani said, "Here comes Queen Victoria." I just wanted to share that. Jai Baba.
Wow. Huh. Okay. I'll play that beautiful arti, the Khorshid Naya that Roshan sang again. Uh, and then I guess we'll end it. Okay. Now let's see.
The whole program?
Oh, well, I could, yeah, that was what I was saying. But I could play the CD all the way through if for anybody who wants to listen to all the songs. What do you? Anybody interested in that? Or mm, I'll tell you what. Let's let's just have a moment of silence now. We'll end the program now, and then I'll play that CD for anybody who would like to hear all the songs on it. Okay, so we have Avatar Meher Baba 3 times, KJ. Avatar.
Avatar, Meher Baba, Ki
Ki
Jai. Avatar, Meher Baba,
Avatar
Ki
Meher
Jai.
Baba Ki Jai.
Avatar, Meher Baba,
Avatar Meher
Ki
Baba
Jai.
Ki Jai.
Day.
Thank you,
Day,
Karen.
Baba.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
all your work.
Thank
Yes.
you, Betty.
Thank you,
Day,
Betty. Thank you,
Baba.
Karen. Thank you, Alan. Much love to you guys.
Thank you,
Hi,
Betty.
Clea and David.
Thank you.
Ready?
Day, Baba.
Hey, Baba, much
Love
love
you
to
guys.
you
Hey,
all.
Baba, thanks, Betty.
Day, Baba,
Jai
Betty.
Baba.
Day, Baba,
Hey,
everyone.
Baba.
Good job,
Jai
Betty.
Baba. Karen, we love
Baba
you.
Karen. Hey, Baba.
Day, Baba.
Bye-bye, all.
You.
Jokes on the way. Hi, goer.
Hey, Jai Baba, everyone. Thank
Baba.
you. Thank you, Betty. Thank you, Karen. That was beautiful. Thank you, everybody. Sharing was beautiful.
It was lovely to remember her. I'm so glad we did
Great
this.
song. Great song.
Yeah.
Good
I think it
song.
was Peter Goodman who said, we really must do this. We really must, honor her. And he's so right. We did. Yeah,
We did.
we did. All right. So now I will play the whole CD through. You can go about your day or sit and meditate or however you. All right. Let's see. Oh, I'm gonna do this one. Computer audio.
Sure you didn't want me to.
Benami yazdan Satayim zabayim Dadar ahudamazda Rayaman Kareman Harvis Payaga Gerdegar Khudavande Khudavandan Padshah barhame Padshah Nekehedar Khale ke makhlud Al razak roji dehande Kader o kavi o karim Bakshayande Baksha Yazgar Meherban
No.
Tavana
Roshan.
Odana Odadar
अधिकार आदेल पादशाही बीजवल बाशद आहूरे मस्ता खुदा अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय. The song which I sang just now was sung by Lord Zoroaster when he was avatar in Iran. This is from the Zoroastrian prayer book in the name of Khorde Avasta. And the name of this song is called Khorshid Niyayesh. It seems that Meher Baba said that this is the essence of the whole Zoroastrian prayer book. And it goes like this. I begin my prayer by invoking the name of Yazad, O the Lord of creation, Ahura Mazda, Thou who art the source of all light, and Thou who art all effulgence and all-knowing, are the Lord of lords, the King of kings, the Creator of all creation, the Preserver and the Sustainer, O Omnipotent, O the Ancient One and Eternal, Thou who art the giver of all boons, and Thou who art all mercy and all wisdom, and the source of all purity. O the Lord of creation, Ahura Mazda, I invoke Thy name and ask for Thy blessings. Let Thy will be done and Thy justice be administered, O God, Ahura Mazda. Jai Baba. When beloved Baba used to come to Bindra house, at that time we did not have any radios or any entertainment in the house. The only entertainment was given by the family by singing to Baba. And this is one song which beloved Baba liked it very much. So it goes like this. बंदों से प्रभु ने कहा भगवान मेरा नाम बंदों से प्रभु ने कहा भगवान मेरा नाम कोई कहे राम कोई कहे श्याम कोई कहे राम मुझे कोई कहे श्याम बंदों से प्रभु ने कहा भगवान मेरा नाम कोई कहे राम मुझे कोई कहे श्याम हर डाल में हर पात में हर फूल में मैं हूँ हर डाल में हर पात में हर फूल में मैं हूँ बंदे जो दिल में देख तुझो है वही मैं हूँ जो मुझको मानता सदा मैं उसका हूँ गुलाम मैं उसका हूँ गुलाम कोई कहे राम कोई कहे श्याम कोई कहे राम मुझे कोई कहे श्याम बंदों से प्रभु ने कहा भगवान मेरा नाम कोई कहे राम मुझे कोई कहे श्याम सूरज की चांद की और सितारों की जोत हूँ, सूरज की चांद की और सितारों की जोत हूँ। बचपन हूँ, जवानी हूँ, बुढ़ापा में मौत हूँ। खुद ही बना के खुद ही मिटाना है मेरा काम, मिटाना है मेरा काम। कोई कहे राम, कोई कहे श्याम, कोई कहे राम मुझे, कोई कहे श्याम। बंदों से प्रभु ने कहा भगवान मेरा नाम। कोई कहे राम मुझे, कोई कहे श्याम। God is telling his followers that I am your slave, whether you call me out by name of Ram or you call me out by the name of Shyam. I am in each and every leaf, stems and flower that I bloom. And oh my lovers, I am in each one of you. I exist in each and every one of you. Whoever believes in me, I am their slave. The light of the sun, light of the moon, and the stars, I am the light in them. I am a small child, I am the young person, and when you grow old, I am still in you, and I take you back into myself, and I am your slave. Oh my lovers, I am your slave. Whether you call me Ram or whether you call me Shyam, God says, I am your Ghulam, I am your slave. पीले 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 मेहर नाम का प्याला, पीले 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 मेहर नाम का प्याला। उसको पी कर और पिला कर, उसको पी कर और पिला कर, बन जा तू मत वाला, मत वाला, मत वाला। मेहर नाम का प्याला, पीले 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 मेहर नाम का प्याला। कोई उसको सुख से पी कर दुख को दूर भगाए, कोई उसको सुख से पी कर दुख को दूर भगाए, कोई उसको धार धार के दुख का घर बसा ये बाबा दुख का घर बसाए बिना पिए कोई क्या समझे बिना पिए कोई क्या समझे उसका भेद निराला बन जा तू मत वाला मेहर नाम का प्याला पीले मेहर नाम का प्याला. This song I used to sing to Baba in Bindra house to entertain him. And once Baba used to come to play with my daughter Mehera, and I sang this song to Baba, and Francis was listening it very carefully. The song says, "O lover, drink this wine of love from the cup that God has created, and you get intoxicated in that love of that rare wine and become so intoxicated that you forget yourself. Some people drink it with love, but there are some who threw it away when it was offered to them. Oh, they do not know that they are creating a house of trouble. How can you know without drinking that wine and get yourself intoxicated in the love of God?" Francis Brabazon of Australia, he asked me to translate to him the meaning of this song, and very soon after he came to know about this song, he wrote down a song called Blacksmith Song. And he came and showed me the song, but at that time it was not put to music, but now it is the most loving song that I ever liked in English.
Take this heart, oh blacksmith, take this heart, make it a cup for wine. Take this heart, oh blacksmith, take this heart, make it a cup for wine. Shape the cup, oh shape the cup, oh blacksmith, shape the cup in love's own fair design. Please shape the cup, oh blacksmith, shape the cup in love's own fair design. Take this breath, oh blacksmith, take this breath as best breath as bellows for the fire. See the sparks, see the sparks of the blacksmith, see the sparks leap higher, ever higher. See the sparks, see the sparks of the blacksmith, see the sparks leap higher, ever higher. Oh, take these tears, take these tears, oh blacksmith, take these tears to temper the job done. Take these tears, take these tears, sweet blacksmith, take these tears to temper the job done. See the cup, see the cup, oh blacksmith, see the cup shine like the rising sun. See the cup, see the cup, oh my blacksmith, see the cup shine like the rising sun. Fill the cup, fill the cup, oh blacksmith, fill the cup with the wine of your sweat. Fill the cup, please fill the cup, oh blacksmith, fill the cup with the wine of your sweat. And see I drink, see I drink, oh sweet blacksmith, see I drink, and drown my lost regret. See I drink, see I drink, sweet blacksmith, see I drink, and drown my lost regret. Give to each, give to each, oh blacksmith, give to each a cup of this rare wine. Give to each, give to each, oh blacksmith, give to each a cup of this rare wine. Then all men, oh blacksmith, then all men will become divine. Then all men, oh blacksmith, then all men will become divine.
On 2nd of April 1963, at a Poona gathering, beloved Baba said, "If you repeat this prayer with love, no other prayer remains to be said. Anyone can repeat these names with love, irrespective of religion they belong to." Yazad harves patwan harves pahaga harves pakuda अबद अबी अंजाम बुनेशते फराक्षतन है चमग फर्ज तरे तुम अफीज अबरवन परवन अमैयाफर अमैयाफर आद्रव गीराव अचेम चमना सफना अफजा नाशा फरवरा आईने अनाईने खरोशिद तुम मिनोवतुम वासनाम हरवस्तुम हुसे पास हर हमीद हरनी कफरे बेशतर नाम तरोनीश अनशक फरशक फजोहर ख्वाफराव अवक्षायाव अब्रजा सतोहर रखोहर वरुण अफरेफर बेफरेफर अद्वीत कामेरत फरमान काम अयोक्तन अफरेमोश हमारना सनायाव अत्रश अबीश अफरास्तुम हमचुन मिनो सतीगर अमीनोगर मिनो नहब्त आदर बादगर आदर नमगर बाद आदरगर बाद नमगर बाद गेलगर बाद गेद तुम आदर किबरित तुम बाद गरजाए आब तुम गेल आदरगर गेल वादगर गेल नमगर गर गर गरोगर गरागर अग्रागर गर अग्रागर गर अगुवान हमशत फशुतना पद्मानी फिरोजगंद आबरीन कोतवान आबरीन नोतवान वस्पान वस्पा खावर अहू अवखशीदार दादार रयोमन खारेमन दावर कैरफेगर बोक्तात फरशोगर अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय यजद
worthy of worship,
हरवेस पतवाना
all powerful,
हरवेस पहागा
all knowing,
हरवेस पखुदा
Lord of all,
अबद
without beginning,
अभी अंजाम
without end,
बुनेस तहागा
root of creation,
फराक्षतन है
endless bliss,
जमग
primal cause,
प्रचित्रा
exalted one,
तुम अफीज
purest of the pure,
अबरवंद
detached from all,
परवंद
in touch with all,
अन अहा
unattainable,
हमा अफजा
attainer of all,
आदर
most righteous,
गिर
upholder of all,
अचना
beyond reason,
चमना
sovereign reason,
सफना
bountiful one,
अफजा
ever prolific,
नाशा
reaching equally to all,
परवरा
nourisher,
अन अहा
protector of the world,
इन आश
never changing,
आशना
formless,
खरोशीद तुम
most steadfast among the steadfast,
विनोतना
Lord invisible,
वासना
all pervading,
हरवेस्तना
all in all,
हुसपास
worthy of our profound thanks,
हर हमीद
all embracing goodness,
हर नी कफरे
all embracing holy light,
बेशतरना
remover of affliction,
तरोशना
beyond affliction,
अनह आशका
immortal,
फरशका
fulfiller of holy desires,
Ajohad,
creator of holy attributes,
Khafa,
compassionate judge,
Avashitna,
merciful giver,
Abraza,
bountiful giver,
Astoha,
unconquerable,
Rakoha,
freest of the free,
Varun,
deliverer from evil,
Afarefa,
never deceiving,
Befarefa,
never deceived,
Advi,
one without a second,
Kamarat,
Lord of desire,
Faran Ka,
decreer of sovereign desire,
Aktan,
soul supreme,
Faremosh,
never forgetting,
Hamana,
just accountant,
Sanaya,
knowing all things,
Atarash,
fearless,
Abish,
devoid of pain,
Afrzadam,
most exalted one,
Kamchana,
ever the same,
Minosatigar,
invisible creator of the universe,
Aminogar,
creator of the profoundly spiritual,
Mino Nahab,
hidden within the spirit,
Adar Badgar,
transmuter of fire into air,
Adar Namgar,
transmuter of fire into dew,
Bad Adargar,
transmuter of air into fire,
Bad Namgar,
transmuter of air into dew,
Bad Garidatum,
transmuter of air into earth,
Bad Garidatum,
supreme transmuter of air into dust,
Adar Kibritatum,
supreme transmuter of fire into divine sparks,
Bad Gar Jayatum,
spreading air everywhere,
Ahatum,
creator of life-giving water,
Gel Adargar,
transmuter of dust into fire,
Gel Namgar,
transmuter of dust into air,
Gel Namgar,
transmuter of dust into water,
Gar Gar,
master craftsman,
Garagar,
rewarder of sincere desires,
Gar Agar,
creator of all humanity and its actions,
Garagar Gar,
creator of all human and animal life,
Agar Gar,
creator of all the four elements,
Agar Agar Gar,
creator of all the planets and all other worlds,
Agar Moon,
never in doubt,
Ajaman,
ageless,
Akan,
eternally awake,
Amast,
ever alert,
Fashidatum,
ever protecting,
Padmini,
recorder of man's actions,
Firozgar,
victorious,
Khudawand,
Lord of the universe,
Ahura Mazda,
Lord of life and wisdom,
Abarid Khan Tum,
preserver of creation,
Abarin Nukantum,
renewer of creation,
Waspan,
embracing all creation,
Waspar,
giver of all things,
Khabar,
infinitely patient,
Ahu,
Lord of existence,
Avakashidar,
forgiver of sins,
Dadar,
divine creation,
Rayomand,
rayed in glory,
Khoremand,
haloed in light,
Davar,
Lord of justice,
Carefigure,
Lord of just rewards,
Bokhtar,
liberator,
Farshogar,
awakener of eternal spring.
Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
I was able to sing this song as a little girl, a 4.5-year-old. But instead of saying my Na Khuda, I always used to call my beloved Baba Ma Khuda. I felt that Baba was my mother and my God. And I always used to argue with my aunts and cousins, saying, why are you telling Baba that you are not God? In our language, Na Khuda, I thought, is you are not God. So I never used to say Na Khuda. So they all complained to beloved Baba. And one day at Upper Meherabad, when Baba was sitting on the gadi, he told me to say this prayer in front of him. I sang and I called Baba my Ma Khuda. So Baba stopped me. And then Baba's sister Mani Aunty said, it is not Ma Khuda, it is Na Khuda. But I said to Mani Aunty, Baba is God, isn't it? So why do you say Na Khuda? Na means no. Baba said, that's not the case. Na Khuda means I am the captain of your ship. You are floating in the ocean of love and I am the captain of this ship. I said, nobody was able to tell me that. So I did not listen to them. Now from today I will say Na Khuda. And I started saying the correct thing. Jai Baba. O God, command that fire of your ignorance be extinguished. Your lovers yearn for you to bestow upon them the light of faith. O Murshid Meher Baba, we lay our head at your feet. O Meher Baba, you have made yourself perfectly aware of your Godhood. You are the Lord of truth. You are the lover and the beloved in one. Being the tolerant of infinite knowledge, you are the ocean of oneness. O Master, bestow upon us, the wayfarers, the knowledge of Izzat. For you, O Paramatma, are the omniscient and you are divine knowledge itself. Give us to drink of the cup of God's love, that we become intoxicated. O Sheikh, we offer you lives in sacrifice to you. Give us that draught. Only if you steer our ship while in the mid-ocean can we remain floated. O Meher Baba, the captain of our ship, you are the protector. O Meher Baba, the captain of our ship, you are
our protector. Jai Baba. Bujave narazallatani hai kar khuda रत्ने परमातु छेलागी आश भक्तो ने के पक्षे नूरही मातु आयामुर शत मेहरा बाबा चरण पर तुझने धरिए सर खुदा ना जात थी वाके फथाई बैठो मेहर बातू तुझे माँ लिख हकीकत नो तू आशिक भी ने आरिफ भी तुझे दरी या ये वहदत मारिफत नो हो ये तूफातू हमारा है रब ने आयशाले बखस्चे ज्ञान ईज़दनु के तुझ पर मात महाज्ञानी छने मुख त्यार इरफातू खुदा ना प्रेम नो प्यालो पिलावी मस्त हमने कर छे तुझ पर जहान सत के साखिया पी दे पय मातू हमारी नाव भर दरिए तरावे ताज हमें तरिए हमारा ना खुदा है मेहर बाबा छेवनी के बातू बुझावे नारज़ हलतनी है कर खुद रत्ने परमातु छेलागी आश भक्तो ने के बख्शे नूर ही मातू। अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय।
In the name of God Almighty, I praise and utter. Almighty God, full of glory, full of radiance, all-knowing, preserver of all, God of gods, King of kings, protector of all, creator of all things created, bestower of bounties and giver of food to all, Lord of nature. O Almighty God, the Ancient One, forgive us, bestower of grace, O merciful. O omnipotent, omniscient, O Lord of all, O nourisher of purity.
अपना मियज़दान सतायेम zăbayim Dadar ahuremazda Rayoman kareman Harves bayaga Kerdegar Khudavande Khudavandan Padshah barhame padshah negehedar khale ke maklum al razak roji dehande kader o kavi o karim bakshayande bakshayazgar meherban tawana vodana vodadar o pak parvardigar Adel Padşahi bizval başa Ahurema